Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Stardom Cast. This is a podcast where we talk about all things about the fantastic professional wrestling promotion that is Stardom, and we do it in a fun and positive manner. I am your host, Matt Turner, and I'm sure you can tell this is our bi-weekly Patreon exclusive bonus episode, exclusive to all of our white belt tier and our red belt tier Patreon members. And if this is your first time listening to us on Patreon, welcome. Come on in and enjoy yourself, as I plan on recording a fun podcast. And as always, if this is your return, first of all, thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for all the positive remarks that you've been leaving me on the Apple Podcast and on Twitter and or the Instagram as well. Your support is greatly appreciated. And this month's podcast, or this week's podcast, is going to be the review of what you, the listeners, the friends and family of the Stardom Cast, have voted on. We're going to be doing the Giulia White Belt, the Wonder of Stardom Championship title reign, the title reign that lasted 220 days and saw 6 successful title defenses. And boy, what great time this is, as as you're listening to this, we're pretty much on the eve of the finals of the 5-star, but as I'm recording this, it looks like that Giulia has a really good, clear shot of winning the 5-star, as she just took the overall points lead over Hazuki. She's standing, again, as of this recording, in first place, and it is very much looking like, it could change just because of how crazy the red block is, but it's very much looking like Giulia and Tam in the finals. And again, great timing here. Hey, sometimes I get lucky, because Giulia and Tam in this review wrestle each other not once, not twice, but 3 times. So again, thank you everyone so much for voting for this episode, because this was an absolute banger and fun one to watch. So let's dive into it, shall we? So Giulia's title reign comes on the eve of a tournament. So what happens is, for Arisha Hoshinki, huge fan favorite here of the Stardom Cast, she had to relinquish her title due to injury, and it was put up into a 4-person tournament. Tam Nakano would go on to defeat Tora, the leader of Oedo Tai, getting her spot into the final. And then Giulia, I'm kind of going to do a little mini review here. Giulia, on the 17th of July, 2020, would have to take on Konami, considering the fact that now we fast forward a year and a half later, Konami's last singles match was against Giulia, and what we dubbed the unofficial Hana Kimura tribute match. So Giulia and Konami was the tournament semifinal. I gave this match 4 stars. I thought this was a really solid outing by the two of them. You see Giulia really showing off her striking game and her submission game in this match. And obviously Konami is the submission sniper, not striper, like the band, to hell with the devil. Giulia gets the win with the glorious driver, and that sets her up into the finals of the vacant Wonder of Stardom tournament. We fast forward to about 10 days later, 9 days, as we go to the 26th of July, 2020, Cinderella Summer in Tokyo, and we will go on now with our first official review of the match, as Tam Nakano and Giulia will be doing battle for the vacant Wonder of Stardom Championship. And they did a great job making Tam the lovable babyface in this, and Giulia the dirty, evil heel, based on just Tam's, her former tag partner with Arisha Hoshinki. She wants to win this belt for her and carry on her legacy. In 2019, Tam and Arisa did win the Goddess of Stardom Championship tournament, but they did fall short against Konami and Jungle Kiona to going for the Goddess titles. But Tam made it very apparent that she wanted to keep on the legacy that is Arisha Hoshinki, and Giulia was like, the heck with that legacy. I wanted to build my legacy. So Giulia being very disrespectful to Tam's partner and one Arisa Hoshinki leading up to this match. So they do a great job. This takes place in Korakuen Hall. They do a great job what they do the backstage. They're filming them getting ready for the match and like their entrances. I love that, because it just kind of puts you just in a crazy mindset. Like, you really have to be locked into your character and everything that's going on and being engaging with the fans. So I'm really big into that. It's basically almost like the match before the match. We always see curtain to curtain, what happens in the ring, but it's really cool when you have a big match like this, especially a tournament final for the Wonder of Stardom Championship that we get to see kind of the, Tam and Giulia both locking in. So a big fan of that. Really tight lockup to start between the two. After a chess match to see who will make the first mistake, these two start trading some stiff forearms in the middle of the ring. Eventually, the action spills to the outside of the ring in Cork and Hall. Tam hits a German suplex onto the floor. Giulia winds up getting the advantage back. She hits a glorious driver onto the floor. Good psychology there. Tam hitting one of her big moves on the floor, and Giulia hitting her go-to finisher here on the floor. So now we're kind of at a 50-50 stalemate, and just shows like these big bumps kind of early on, just how important this match is. Tam hits a spin kick onto Giulia that cuts open the bottom of Giulia's chin. We actually saw a lot of that with these two. And even in the tag matches that we've been seeing over the last year and a half, it just seems like these two really lay their stuff in and hopefully apologize later afterwards. So Giulia's bleeding from the chin, so it just adds to the drama of this match. Giulia comes back with a superplex and a German suplex for two. Tam winds up targeting Giulia's knee with some low leg kicks and a knee bar submission. We don't see enough of that. Tam is really good with those leg lock submissions, and she only brings them out every now and again. I think her submission game is very underrated. Giulia comes back with a neck breaker. Tam winds up getting the advantage back. When Giulia goes to the top rope, it gets cut off, and Tam throws her off the second rope with a German suplex. At that point, the crowd, again, obviously, clap crowd here, 2020, we're in the midst of COVID. So the clap crowd is really, really on fire here. Back to the middle of the ring they go as we're at a stalemate. The two trade forearms into the middle of the ring. Giulia drops Tam. She gets the advantage. She locks in the Bianca. Tam slips out, and then Tam tries for the Tiger suplex, but Giulia counters with several backdrop drivers, and then she follows up quickly with the Shining Black, the step up Yakuza kick for two. She hits the Glorious Driver for two. She goes for, then she locks in the Bianca to stay the pressure on Tam as she's just hitting Tam with bombs as she senses that she has Tam towards the end. But Tam winds up slipping out of the Bianca. She hits two violent shootings, one to the front, one to the back, one to the side. I thought that was a really cool shot, that third one, right in the middle of Cork and Hall, and great feed by Giulia. She has her neck out, her arms down. She's selling the first two violent shootings. That third one really looked like it took out Giulia. Tam follows up with a Tiger suplex, but only gets two. Tam hits a bunch of series of brutal head kicks. Giulia is able to fight off the onslaught from Tam. She cuts her off with a Michinoku driver, and then she locks in an armbar that she transitions into the Bianca. The ref winds up calling for the bell because one Miss Tam Nakano passes out due to pain. 28 minutes, 27 seconds, 4 1/4 stars. I thought this was an excellent final. That might have went a little bit too long, but I thought they did a really good job getting the championship belt over in this match. And I was a big fan of, as always, that when you're getting towards the end of the match, when these wrestlers, they have more than one go-to, where they try to chain them together. It's a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of it. You'll hear a lot here in this podcast, and even something Giulia's been doing pretty much since the onset of, the end of 2020 until right now in 2022. I'm a big fan of the way she transitions into submissions. Really, really big fan of that. As I'm sure a lot of you know, that I study catch as catch can wrestling, and you kind of come from the school of, a lot of my teachers came from the school of Billy Robinson, where he always said that if you don't have a submission on in 4 or 5 seconds, that you need to transition to something else, then you don't have it. And why I don't subscribe to that theory 100%, because I was a big fan of Bob Backlund locking Bret Hart into the crossface chicken wing at Survivor Series 94 for 10 minutes. It does make a lot of sense. If you don't have it and they're not tapping, switch to something else. And Giulia does that a lot today in 2022. And I noticed that she does that a lot in her Wonder of Stardom championship reign. So Giulia wins the belt. And then automatic rematch. Tam Nakano. We go to the Stardom Yokohama Cinderella show on the 3rd of October against Tam Nakano. So Tam gets pretty much the automatic rematch here coming off right after the 5-star. Unlike their last match, there's really no feeling out process here. These two trade forearms back and forth. Giulia tries to go to the top rope, but Tam meets her, and the two of them slap each other repeatedly from the top rope. Giulia falls to the floor. That gives Tam the advantage and lets her hit her signature dive onto pretty much the entire roster of Donald Del Mundo. Tam tries to suplex Giulia off the top rope, but the champion counters and she locks her in the octopus stretch off the top rope. We've seen this a few times before. I'm a big fan of when people do submissions on the top rope. I mean, one, you only have to see for 4 seconds, so they have to break it, and two, as long as nobody falls. To me, it's super impressive that you're locking on some sort of submission on the rope, and you have the body weight of two people on that top rope, because it's just something that if they move just a half an inch to the left or right or sell it a certain way, that it's going to be disastrous. Obviously, it wasn't here, and Tam does a phenomenal job selling that top rope octopus stretch. And then when Giulia, she does break the count at 4, because then she flips off with the powerbomb. So I thought that was a really cool combination. Giulia throws rapid fire forearms, and then she hits a Kamagoye, and she follows up with a glorious driver, but only gets 2. She tries another glorious driver, but Tam counters with a brutal spin kick, same spin kick that cut Giulia open in their championship final match just 3 months earlier. These two trade some stiff slaps in the middle of the ring, something that 2 years later we're still seeing. Tam hits a perfect German suplex and follows up with a tiger suplex for 2. Tam goes to her bread and butter, the finisher Twilight Dream, but Giulia is able to escape with a backdrop driver. Giulia locks in the Bianca. It looks like the ref is going to stop the match, like we've seen earlier, playing off their championship final match. But Tam, it gets to the ropes at the very last second, just when the ref is getting ready to call for the bell. I thought that was great. It looked like Tam was ready to pass up. It's like, we've seen this before. We're going back to this finish. And the crowd bid on it. So did I. I thought that was great. Tam pulls herself up and hits a Katsuhori Shibata, disgusting style headbutt. And then Giulia winds up firing back with the Northern Lights bomb. And then Tam fighting spirits up and hits several kicks, very fighting spirit style. Giulia rebounds with a glorious driver, but then Tam kicks out at 1. Giulia follows up with a Shining Black and then another glorious driver. Took several of her finishes to put Tam down for the win. 17 minutes, 55 seconds, 4 3/4 stars. This was fantastic. I like this matchup better than their first one. It seems like their chemistry just gets better each and every time. And you can just see Giulia just taunting poor Tam. Like, you're so close. You're so close. And you can just see in Tam's eyes, like, I did everything I could to fight out of that. Like, I got hit with your finisher so many times, and it wouldn't put me down, but I couldn't put you down. I thought it was excellent storytelling. We move on to Night 6 of the Tag League 2020, October 29th, 2020, of course, as we see Giulia taking on Himeka, a fellow stablemate of hers, of Donald Del Mundo. Himeka charges right at Giulia with a tackle and a clothesline combination, and Himeka tries to powerbomb Giulia, going right to one of her bread and butter moves, but the champ winds up escaping. Action spills to the outside. Himeka misses a clothesline and hits the post. Ooh, yikes. That was brutal. Really good psychology there. Because then obviously you know that what Giulia's going to do, she's going to attack that arm of the bigger and stronger opponent. Back to the ring they go as Giulia becomes super, super aggressive as she starts setting the pace for this match. She starts using submissions and baits Himeka into missing several running moves. And then this way, that gives her to keep the advantage, using Himeka's size and strength and inexperience against her. I thought that was really, really smart strategy, really good psychology as we get into the middle of this match. Eventually, Himeka lands a few forearms to slow down Giulia's onslaught offense. They trade blows in the middle of the ring, and then Himeka finally lands that big lariat, shakes off through the pain. I thought that was a really good visual there, that she's able to hit this lariat that she's just been trying to hit, but she does damage to her arm. But hey, it's for the championship. We'll worry about the pain after the 3 count. Himeka lands a series of slaps as Giulia winds up landing a vicious headbutt. We see a lot of that with Giulia, with that headbutt. I'm a big fan of headbutts, but at the same time, I'm not. Just make sure you're being careful, folks. Guys and girls, be careful of those headbutts. Himeka lands the Jumbo Sharuda style knee. Consider the fact that she's the Jumbo Princess. I thought that was pretty cool. Giulia comes back. He's a Mijinoko driver. That was a great visual. These two wind up getting. Giulia goes to the top rope, and Himeka cuts her off. Two of them fight on the top rope, and then Giulia locks in the octopus stretch on the top rope. Again, super, super cool, especially with the bigger opponent. Again, a lot can go wrong there. Thank God nothing did. Himeka fights out and hits the avalanche-style Samoa drop, try to get the advantage back as we're getting really towards the tail end of this match. She follows up with a torture rack, and I like how she set up the JP coaster here. Usually she kind of just puts her opponent in the torture rack for like a half a second, and then she does the JP coaster. But she had Giulia in it for a little bit, and then kind of like walked around the ring with her for a little bit. So this way, everybody, almost in all four corners, can see what she was doing. You kind of want the play to develop so this way the crowd can see it. It just adds just a little bit more. She winds up slamming her down with the JP coaster, but only gets a 2 count as the champion kicks out. Himika comes back with a concussion bomb, but when Giulia kicks out, she kicks out upwards and locks on the triangle choke, and then transitions into the Bianca. Again, huge fan of Giulia, the way she transitions into these submissions. Himika gets to the ropes, and then she winds up hitting a backdrop and a sliding lariat for 2. Himika goes for the concussion bomb, the power bomb, but Giulia counters it with a hurricanrana. We don't see that too much of from Giulia, taking one from the Mayu Iwatani playbook. And then she pops up with the shining black for 2. Himika fights up with the big lariat, but then Giulia pops up, fighting spirits up with a German suplex, and then another shining black picks up Himika, hits a backdrop driver for 2. Once Himika kicks out, Giulia quickly follows up, hits the glorious driver at 19 minutes 47 seconds for the 1-2-3, and getting her total victories up for this white belt up to 2. I thought this was a fantastic, stellar match. 4.25 star. Afterwards, Giulia, she calls out Konami for her next challenger, considering the fact that Konami and Giulia were in the semifinals for the Wonder of Stardom Championship. So now we have a match between the two with just a little bit more indications on it, as Giulia is the champion going in. And this match took place at the Sendai Cinderella on the 15th of November in the year 2020. Konami's focused right away on Giulia's arm. That sets up all of her submissions in her arm bars. She locks her in an arm bar and goes to the triangle lancer or she teases the triangle lancer early. Giulia winds up getting out. Konami's just relentless with all of her arm work. Brutal kicks. And Giulia's selling here makes it look really, really good. I mean, she's doing a really good job putting over Konami's kicks and all of her forearms to the arm and all her transitions into the submissions. Really, like 4 or 5 minutes of this match, this is making it look like it's going to be a rout. Like Konami, right from the get-go, that's her bread and butter. Her game plan is always to attack her opponent's arm. And Giulia said her submission game is absolutely fantastic. We've seen her submit so many opponents, but you're going up against somebody that's probably just a little bit better at submissions than you. And Konami does a really good job building up these submissions, because it just looks like that Giulia is just going to get routed here. It was almost like a squash. It's like, wow, she really is going to have to fight from underneath to get this win from Konami. It did really just showing just how aggressive Konami is. Giulia finally gets her first offense with a stiff Yakuza kick. She follows up with a few submission attempts and then transitions into the backdrop driver. That seems to be, I've noticed that in this title reign, and just watching Giulia the past year or so, that backdrop driver seems to be like her go-to to create separation or to do in between big moves, like how Mayu throws like the super kick or Okada throws the drop kick. That just seems to be like her go-to, is that backdrop driver. Not only does she do it so well, like she puts it in where she needs to put it in for it to make the most sense of the match. She does a really good job putting her stuff in from a crowd psychology standpoint, where it's going to make the most sense and get the most out of the match. She's a really, really, really good at certain things like that. These two trade strikes right into the middle of the ring, but Giulia is done playing games as she winds up firing up and hits that sick headbutt. And then she goes for the German suplex, but Konami slips out and she locks in the rear naked choke. Konami goes back to the injured arm with a rolling arm bar. Giulia slips out and she hits the shining black. Champ locks in a belly down arm bar and then transitions into the Bianca, so kind of giving Konami a little taste of her own medicine. Konami barely gets to the ropes, forcing the break. So we see Giulia's first real submission advantage on Konami here. So I thought that was good. It was a really good job, like how Konami's really selling the belly down arm bar, and as she was getting out, Giulia locked in the Bianca, and it really looked like we were going to get a tap as you see the panic on Konami's face. I thought that was a great sell job for Konami there to really get Giulia's submission game over. Giulia hits the shining black Michinoku driver combination for 2. She tries for the glorious driver, but her arm's just a little bit too injured as Konami slips out and gets Giulia's arm. She goes in for the submission attempt and is able to hit the roll out and hit the glorious driver at 20 minutes and 43 seconds for the 1, 2, 3, 4.5 stars. This was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Great job, great storytelling, and great job getting Konami over, especially in that first 5 or 6 minutes of the match where she was just dominating Giulia, and Giulia had a fight. We see Giulia just always coming out as the aggressor in these matches, where this was like the script was flipped, and they did a great job getting it over. We go to about a month later, the Osaka Dream Cinderella, December 20th, as we see Giulia going up against Shuri, a match that I think a lot of people are going to think is going to headline the final big show of the year of 2022, Shuri versus Giulia. I think that's where we're going at the end of this year. But we go back 2 years earlier as we have it's a title versus title match. It's the Wonder of Stardom champion Giulia versus the SWA champion Shuri. So there's some really good ground wrestling to start. Giulia's submissions game isn't as good as Shuri's. Boy, it's really improving, as you can see it really involving in this title run. Shuri uses some kicks and a half crab to try and wear down Giulia. The two champs wind up exchanging boots and mid kicks. Obviously, Giulia, she favors that Yakuza kick, and Shuri favors the mid kick. So that was a good job of the two of them going back and forth in the middle of the ring there. Giulia hits a drop kick and locks in STF. Again, another submission added to Giulia's game. Shuri fires back with some kicks, and then the two of them trade German suplexes in the middle of the ring. And then after they get done doing that, they trade some really stiff forearms. Giulia gets the better of that exchange. I'm a little shocked on that one because Giulia's a great striker, but Shuri, again, shooter, anime background, you figured that Shuri would get the advantage there, but that just does a good job getting Giulia's strikes over just a little bit more. Shuri winds up firing up though. She levels up with some brutal kick combinations. These two wind up brawling all the way to the top of the ramp, where Giulia hits the glorious driver onto the ramp, and then she hits the glorious buster off the top rope for two. And then Shuri winds up, Giulia tries to fire back up on Shuri. She goes for the Yakuza kick. Shuri evades the Yakuza kick, locks in the rear naked choke to slow down Giulia. But Giulia slips out of the side, quickly counters with a backdrop driver, and then she hits Hana Kimura's Tiger Lily, the package pile driver, for just two. I thought that was a nice little wrinkle, into this match. And you see Giulia really working on Shuri's neck, the glorious driver on the ramp. She hits the big move off the second rope, and now the package pile driver, really trying to wear down Shuri's neck here. Shuri winds up slowing down this onslaught of offense by going to her bread and butter, the ground and pound style offense. But Giulia winds up hitting another backdrop driver. See, there it is again. Shuri's got the advantage going to the ground and pound, the stuff that really nobody can, beat her on, because that's what she's pretty much trained in. And Giulia uses a desperation backdrop driver and then a shining black for two. Giulia hits a sit-out glorious driver but can't follow up right away as her back is just too damaged. Shuri hits a head kick and then a spinning back fist as the two of them pass out. And as soon as they do, the time limit expires. This was excellent match, 4.25 stars. I like their matchup better from World Climax just this past March. I think I gave it 4 3/4 or 5 stars. I forget. I know it was up there. And it probably might finish. Then again, I was ready to say it might finish in my top 10 for Stardom matches this year. But what we're seeing in this 5-star Grand Prix, a match that got 4 3/4 stars might not make my top 10 because, boy, the Stardom promotion is something. I thought this was a really good job. And I think everybody saw this finish come a mile away, that they weren't going to have a double champion, that neither of these stable mates, one was going to get up on the other. So I think this was very easily predictable that we're going to get a time limit draw, but you can't be disappointed at all with the result, just for how great this match was. We go to the V5 as we have the 10th anniversary show taking place on January 17th, 2021 as Natsuko Tora and a no disqualification match. I was glad, and I'm going to be referencing Rob's book, Rob Goodwin, Living the Dream, Stardom's 10th anniversary in review. There was a lot of matches that took place in 2021 that I didn't watch up until maybe a handful of months ago. And what I would do is I would go through Rob's book. I've seen now every match from last year, But I remember when I first got the book back at the beginning of the year, and I was just kind of just going through stuff. And an anniversary show for any company is always a big deal. So I was kind of just reading the results. And me and Rob, when we do our star ratings, we're pretty well close. We're usually, half a star to a quarter star off. I mean, every now and again we're a little bit more, but it's very rare. But I'm really glad that I read what he wrote in this book. I read it a couple times, and just to kind of paraphrase, he didn't like this match. And I know a lot of people online didn't like this match. So it wasn't good by any standards. So my expectations were really low going into this match. So I'm kind of again, I'm glad that I went back and I reference Rob's book all the time. And if you folks don't have Rob's book, you really need to get it. I think it's like $25 shipped. If you're a fan of physical media, I am. Obviously, you can get it right away if you want to do the digital copy, or get both. Again, if you're a Stardom fan, which I'm assuming you are because you listen to this podcast and you're part of Patreon. First of all, thank you, but you really need to have this book. It's just an absolutely fantastic, fantastic read. Rob does a great job breaking a lot of the stuff down and storylines down. But yeah, again, I'm glad that I read what he wrote about this match, because my expectations were low and they exceeded. So let's get on to the match. Again, this is the V5 for Giulia, and they do a really good job. Basically kind of almost telling the story, whether it's got to be no DQ. Tora's a big fan. Obviously, you're in a Oedo Tai. You're the leader of that group. They're all about. They're the big heel faction, and one of the main reasons why they are the heel faction, as I'm sure most of you fantastic listeners know, is because they cheat all the time. That's just their thing. So and obviously Giulia's got no problem getting her hands dirty. So the match starts out with some wrestling, which I was kind of scratching my head at. I'm like, you've been kind of building this feud up for the past couple months, where it's like Donald Del Mundo versus Oedo Tai and leader versus leader. Now we're going to do no DQ anniversary show, Korakuen Hall for the white belt. So you figure this would just be like a wild, crazy brawl, but it starts off with like arm drags, which I thought was weird. Eventually does turn into wild brawl. Giulia takes these cinder blocks and does the Karate Kid style chop onto Tora. I didn't think she was going to get it, because you can see like she jumped up and down. She's like so happy that she got it. I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing here. She sold her hand for a few seconds, so I thought that was good. Giulia hits a backdrop driver, but Tora rebounds with the spear. I love the way Natsuko uses that spear in matches, like where she puts it in and how she gets the most out of it. Tora hits clothesline with the chain. Giulia gets the chain. She winds up hanging Tora. They kind of just go back and forth. There's really not a lot of substance to this match. It's just like an old school wild brawl that I think went a tad bit too long. I mean, 18 minutes, 34 seconds. Eventually, Giulia wraps the chain around Tora. She hits the glorious driver for the pinfall. I gave it 3.5 stars. Not probably my least favorite match of this run. Again, I think I liked it more than most, because I appreciate the effort that they did and they tried to do something different. It just didn't land. Maybe the two of them just don't have the chemistry together. And sometimes that happens. But you have to appreciate the effort. But again, 18 minutes, 34 seconds. It's just way too long. We need like a no DQ match. I mean, that's like if you have two UFC heavyweight fighters or two really good knockout heavyweight fighters, and they're not going to pull their punches. You see a lot of these fights, they don't go past the first round because they're just swinging. And it's basically like who's going to knock the other one out. When it comes to these no DQ matches, you don't need 18 minutes. You can go 8, you can go 10, you can go 11. And we've seen Giulia being able to tell some fantastic stories in sub 10 minutes. I thought this one might just drug just a little bit. But anywho, enough about that. Let's move on to a match that was completely different. That was absolutely fantastic. We go to the V6, which obviously is Giulia's last successful title defense. And that took place on the 13th of February. Really nice, tight lockup to the two of the stars. I have to say, sometimes it's weird going back watching. And it was only a year and a half ago, going back and watching Starlight Kid, where she's like this lovable baby face, and she's in all these pastel colors and light colors. And now she's got the 42 different masks that she puts on her opponent / victim, and she's in like the dark purple and black of a Oedo Tai, and she's not smiling. You can see she's so much more confident and cocky about herself. So it is kind of fun to go back, but sometimes I kind of have to do a double take. Tight lockup to start. Nice forearm exchange in the middle of the ring. Giulia locks Kid in the camel clutch and starts ripping away at Kid's mask, only like a minute and a half in. So clearly that's where we're going. And again, you go back to the match they just had in Korakuen Hall. that's where this match, that's Giulia's main focus of her offense is in the beginning of the match, trying to rip at Starlight Kid's mask. Match escalates into a brawl outside of the ring. Kid winds up hitting a dive from the top rope. They go back in the ring, and Kid locks in Texas Cloverleaf. Starlight Kid follows up with a cross-leg Northern Light suplex for 2. Love how she does that move. Crowd are really getting into this match, especially really getting in behind Starlight Kid. I think they just feel bad for her because she's getting her mask ripped out by the evil aggressor that is Giulia. Giulia makes a comeback with a German suplex, but then Kid winds up coming back with a code red for a 2 count. Giulia winds up hitting another German suplex, and then the Shining Black. At this point, now the two of them are double down in the ring. This match is 50-50, but some back and forth action as the crowd is really, really coming up here. Back to another forearm exchange between the two of them. Giulia winds up winning the forearm exchange, and then she follows up with a big Falcon Arrow. Is only able to get 2. Giulia tries to stay the aggressor, goes for her finisher, the Glorious Driver. Starlight Kid escapes. She hits a Tombstone Pile Driver, and then her signature moonsault that gets a 2 count. Kid stays aggressive on Giulia with a few strikes and then goes right to the Tiger Suplex, but Giulia counters and hits a backdrop driver. Again, there it is, folks. Starlight Kid going to one of her finishing combinations, and Giulia needs to go to that backdrop driver to create some separation. Greatly well done where she places that move in her matches. Back to the mask, Giulia goes. Kid winds up firing back up with a series of kicks and forearms, and then Giulia hits the headbutt. She goes for the Glorious Driver. Starlight Kid slips out and she gets her in a jackknife pin for a close fall, as so many people bid on that. And it would have been a great story that Giulia's more worried about the mask here than she is beating Kid. And what if Kid flashed pinned her and took away the Wonder of Stardom Championship? That would be, they teased that story for like a half a second there. And I think that's what some people thought that we were going to get. Giulia pops up, hits another big headbutt, and follows up with the Glorious Driver at 20 minutes to get the win. 4.5 stars. Excellent match. Giulia then gets a pair of scissors, starts cutting off part of Starlight Kid's mask, and then rips Starlight Kid's mask off. We've never seen this before and haven't since. And then they basically, the Stars members throw a towel on Kid's face so nobody sees her. And then Giulia takes the scissors, and she sees Tam Nakano sitting in like row 8 in Korakuen Hall and said, "This is going to be your fate come the Budokan Hall show coming up here at All-Star Dream Cinderella." And that's where we will get to our final match. That was a great match. Starlight Kid and Giulia have such great chemistry together. And I can watch those two wrestle forever. And I think that I'm going to make a bold prediction. Giulia, now this first part's not a bold prediction. Giulia at the end of the year will win the World of Stardom Championship. I think that's where they need to go. She's such a huge star that's sure he's done a phenomenal job with that belt. But I think by the end of the year, I think that's where you need to go. You need to go with your hot hand. You want to continue growing this promotion. I think you need to do it with Giulia as your main champion. I'm going to say Starlight Kid next year wins the Cinderella tournament, and then we will see a Starlight Kid versus Giulia match. That is, I think that would be a fantastic way to go. Or Starlight Kid can just win a couple matches and then challenge Giulia for the belt. I think that if Giulia does get the World of Stardom Championship reign, which I think most of us think is going to happen, I think a Starlight Kid match in there is an absolute must and a go-to. So we go to our final match. We have the title match with, this is the third match and the final match versus Tam Nakano. This took place All-Star Dream Cinderella, hair versus hair, March 3rd of 2021. So just about a year ago. And I'm going to read again. I referenced his book, Rob's book, Living the Dream, Stardom's 10th Anniversary Interview. You can get it on Amazon. And I just want to read what he wrote here because I thought it was very, very interesting. So if you have the book, you go to page 97. I'm just going to read pretty much the first paragraph. So here's what Rob wrote, because this was the main event of the show. This show, as I'm sure most of you know, is loaded. You have Yoshinko coming back against Mayu, Momo versus Natsuko. Nanai. And then when the show was put together, they had Utami versus Sai Kamatani for the red belt, and then this match for the white belt. So you figured the red belt is your most prestigious belt. That match would headline But it was announced a few weeks earlier that the Wonder of Stardom hair versus hair match was going to headline. So you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, you're really putting all this stock into Saya Kamatani, and then you're also putting your stock into Utami, who's your champion that's drawing you a whole bunch of money, but they're not main eventing. But this is what Rob wrote that really puts things into a lot of perspective. One of the reasons why it made sense. When first announced, I can't lie and say I wasn't apprehensive at the fact that the Red Belt wasn't headlining this prestigious show, especially on the back of making such a bold statement about investing in the future by putting Saya Kamatani in that match. However, the closer we got to the show, the more I realized it just makes sense that the biggest feud in Stardom has presently and a rarely seen Joshi hair versus hair match. You can't follow that kind of drama. I think he's absolutely right. Whether you like whatever match you like better on this show. I mean, I've seen people saying they like the Tam Giulia match was their favorite. I've seen people say Utami versus Saya was their favorite. I know Rob has been very adamant that Mayu versus Yoshinka was his favorite. I think I have gone on record saying Nanai versus Momo is my favorite. And then I went back and watched the show like twice in the last 3 months, and I'm like, I can't pick a favorite. I can't. I've even seen some people like Sherry versus Konami, even though they got less than 9 minutes. But this is like one of the best shows ever in Stardom's history. So kind of just wanted to just give out Rob's words there. And then give him another plug. Guys, go and buy it. This book's fantastic. Or gift it. Gift it to a friend. Somebody, I know there's a lot of new people looking to get into Stardom. I think that Rob's book is a great entryway to get into it. So we get this. This match is in front of over 3,000 people. So one of the biggest houses Stardom's ever drawn. And in a year in 2022, where Stardom is just absolutely blowing all the numbers out the door. Hopefully one of these shows coming up between now and the end of the year, maybe the finals, the 5-star Grand Prix. I'm hoping that they can beat that number. I'm hoping they can get more than 3,000 people in one of these buildings. But anywho, let's get to the final match. Very big fight feel here. We get some slaps to start, and then Tam winds up hitting the snapmare kick, but Giulia just laughs it off, doesn't sell it at all. Giulia tries for the glorious driver early on. Tam slips out. Tam goes for the Twilight Dream, but Giulia slips out and she hits, guess what, folks? The backdrop driver. First big bump of the match. Obviously, no feeling out process here. This is the third match that these two have had in less than a year. And I think the fourth match, yeah, because I believe they had a 5-star match that year. But anyway, this is the third title match. This is the third title match these two have had in a year, and it's culminating in this big show, hair versus hair. So yeah, makes sense for the two of them start slapping each other, for Giulia to go for her finisher, for Tam to go to her finisher, and then Giulia says, "Nah, I need to slow this down. Let me use that that boxer's left jab, and let me go the backdrop driver." Tam sells to the corner, or excuse me, to the ropes. Giulia hits the Hangman's neckbreaker on the apron onto Tam, and then chokes Tam through the guardrail, and she makes everybody in the front row and the commentators see all the damage that she's doing to Miss Tam Nakano. The champ clearly targeting Tam's neck as she whips her into the guardrail, and then Donald Mundo gets a table ready. Well, not a table ready, but basically holds the end of the hinges of the table as Giulia pile drivers Tam through a table. This is like 4 minutes into this match. I mean, Giulia just really dominating Tam and really putting all that pressure on Tam's neck. Back in the ring they go. Giulia goes for the glorious driver, but Tam reverses into a reverse DDT to create some separation. We've never seen the glorious driver reverse like that before. We've seen people slip out of it, but Tam just grabbed the back of Giulia's neck and just took Giulia's weight down with her. Tam hits a big spin kick that sends Giulia to the outside. Tam hits her signature high crossbody onto the outside, onto everybody that was out there. She quickly throws the champ into the ring and trying to follow up on this new damage that she's done to the champ. She hits a tiger suplex for 2. Tam goes for Twilight Dream, but Giulia gets to the ropes. Tam winds up kicking Giulia's arm off the ropes. I love that spot. I've stolen that spot over the years where like you're trying to lock in a submission or a big suplex and the person gets to the ropes. They throw their hand out real big and you just kick their arm off the ropes. A big fan of that. But when she kicks Giulia's arm off the rope, it feeds back and Tam hits Giulia with the glorious driver for 2. I thought that was great and got a huge pop from the crowd. Giulia gets the advantage back by hitting a desperation backdrop driver. She follows up with headbutts and then a glorious driver for 2. And then the two of them start slowing things down, but yet build them up as they have this long slap exchange. And as this slap exchange is getting in the middle, the crowd goes quiet, and not because they were like dead or not into it, because they wanted to hear the echo in this legendary building. Such a huge fan of Budokan Hall, because I'm a huge fan of All Japan '90s wrestling, and this is like the house that Misawa built. Or as I used to say, if you want to get to Budokan Hall, you have to follow the King's Road. See what I did there? So the Budokan Hall, they go quiet because they want to hear these slaps just echo in this legendary venue, where this venue has seen so many hard-hitting matches with, Stan Hansen and Masawa, Kawada, Kabashi, Holy Demon Army, yada, yada, yada. So the middle of the slap exchange, you just hear these echoes. And then Tam starts getting a slap exchange on Giulia. Giulia puts her arms behind her back herself and says, go ahead, hit me. And Tam just starts slapping the Giulia. I mean, to the point where you see Giulia's face just like welt up. And then Giulia fires back with slaps on her own. And you can see Tam's like the left side of her face. Well, both sides, because she keeps going left and right. But really the right side of her face just starts like puffing up. Like you can just see there's like some swelling there. I mean, Giulia was really laying her stuff, and so was Tam. They didn't held anything back here. I mean, just crazy, some stiff exchanges. Eventually Tam wins that exchange. She snatches Giulia up. She hits the violent screwdriver for 2. Tam fires up at the perfect time, gets Giulia in the middle of the ring. She goes to lock in the Twilight Dream, and she like takes her time with it so everybody can see, and she hits the Twilight Dream for the 3 count. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. I originally had it 4.5 stars, but I bumped it up a quarter of a star just because like the added drama, like just with the storyline that these two built up over the past year. Like Tam wants to win this belt for her former tag partner in Dreamshine, Arisa Hoshinki, who she had to relinquish it due to injury, but Giulia just wanted to win this belt, not only to not honor Arisa, but basically, I'm better than Arisa, I'm better than any wrestler that ever came across here. And Tam is just so desperate to win this match that she'll put her hair up on the line in this match, and she finally vanquishes Giulia. I mean, Giulia just puts on that onslaught on her early on in the match, and then Tam just hits all those big slaps at the end. She hits her nuclear finish, the violent screwdriver. When that doesn't get it done, instead of getting upset or like, what do I need to do, she just fires up like, I'm gonna go to my other finisher. I'm gonna go to the Twilight Dream for the win. And I liked how after the 3 count, she still held the bridge there for a couple of seconds. I thought that was great. And that's the post match was really good. Obviously, the two of them are very emotional. Tam is, she gets the microphone. She's now the new white symbol of stardom. I thought that was great. I was a big fan of just Giulia just playing it cool. Like, she lost this match. She lost the white belt. And Tam even said, I hate to admit this, but I'm now stronger because of you. And as Giulia's just sitting there getting her head shaved, and then her wife, before she gets her head shaved, again, this is just a great job. Here's Giulia. She loses this main event match in the right side and in the middle of the ring. Defiant, definite win for Tam. Her title reign at 220 days is over. She's getting her head shaved in front of over 3,000 people in a huge legendary venue. And right before she gets her head shaved, she goes to the barber, make it look cool. And then as she's getting her head shaved and Tam saying all these things, like pouring her heart out, it was such a great post-match promo. Giulia goes, you should give it a try to Tam. And Tam oddly sells like, no, you're not cutting my fantastic hair. So I thought this was fantastic. This was tremendous. Good way to wrap up this title run. 6 successful title matches. We did, I guess, 8.5 matches reviews. The match she won the title, the match she lost the title, and a mini review of the Konami match for the semifinals to get her to the finals with Tam. So I guess we could say 8.5 matches, but I think I'll put it on the description as 8. This is really good. I always like to give a letter grade. I'm going to give this an A-. And just considering the fact of all the great Wonder of Stardom championship runs there's been, so this is an A-, but to me, Arisa's is better, Momo's is better, Kari's is better, the second EO one's better, and the one that we have going around right now, Saya Kamatani's better. So that's like about 5th. This is like the 5th, in my opinion, the 5th best Wonder of Stardom championship run, but it's still an A-. That just goes to show you, in the 11-year history of this company, how well they do a good job building up their champions, and they don't play hot potato, especially with those 2 belts. So, but that will end our episode for this week. Again, I thank everybody so much for the support. Thank everybody for subscribing to the Patreon. Thank you for voting. Thank you for voting The poll is now up. Actually, by the time you hear this, the poll might be down. Not sure, but basically, what I'll be doing in the month of October. The Goddess of Stardom Tag League starts. So it's your pick, ladies and gentlemen. You pick what you want me to review for the month of October. Obviously, I take the top two vote getters, and the vote getters are the I'll be reviewing Goddess of Stardom Tag League Championship winners. So 2018, Momo and Utami. 2019, I mentioned before, Dreamshine, Tam and Arisa Hoshinki. 2020, Momo AZ, Momo Watanabe and Azumi. And 2021, last year, FWC, Hazuki and Koguma. So that's for all you Momo fans. You have two opportunities here to vote for Momo, or we can have back-to-back Momo episodes. To me, it doesn't matter really who wins, just because I'm thrilled to do either one of these. I'm going to take a guess that Tam and Arisa win, because I know our Patreons absolutely love Arisa. Anything I do with Arisa, I've noticed that the Patreon members go up just a little bit more anytime I put something up with Arisa. But again, that is up to you, whatever. It is not just my podcast, it's your podcast, like I always say. So that is up to you. Lastly, before I close this out, head over to puro-tv.com. Take a look at all the fantastic stuff they have over there. Again, I'm such a huge collector of physical media, and the artwork that is done on these DVDs absolutely fantastic. And use the discount code VISTA10. So it's puro-tv.com. The discount code VISTA, VISTA10. Save 10% off your order. And if you do order something, take a picture. And take a picture on Twitter, and shoot me in a tag, or tag me over on the Startcast. Let me know what you got. Let me know what you got. Let me know what you think. And also let me know what everyone thinks of this podcast if you have not done so. Please go over to iTunes, give me a 5-star rating. Leave a comment if you like, because it really helps the algorithm out as I'm trying to get out the wonderful world that is Stardom. Because just like I always say, it's not just my podcast, it's our podcast, because we're all in this together. And everybody's different, everybody's special. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, a great night, and I will talk to you later.